David Wheldon, President Emeritus of the World Federation, oh, it says RBS up there, but the World Federation of Advertisers, and the founder of BBH and employer of my niece, thank you, John Hegarty. And this feels to me like our very own Glastonbury Legends slot. So let's make the most of it. John and David.
Thank you, thank you. I thought this could be like the a Trump rally, isn't it, where they all start leaving? Oh God!
Yeah. Nice to stand up there.
Fantastic, that was wonderful. We're just going to have this conversation, and I think we've got a slide there. I'm not in charge of slides. Can somebody move that slide on? Yeah, or give it to me and I'll do it.
There we go.
You're wonderful, wonderful. I mean, no, that one there. So I think I'm kicking this off, aren't I?
You are.
This is obvious. It's what we've been talking about. It's estimated that only 6% of this expenditure is truly effective. I keep saying, you know, if you were Bosch and you made brakes, you'd be out of business, wouldn't you? Actually, you know, about 6% is roughly effective. You know, that would be all over. And we presented this slide at Cannes, and some people went, "That's not true. It's 8%." And we said it's a bit like arguing how fast the Titanic sank, isn't it? No, it was an hour and a half. No, it wasn't. It was an hour. But I think this has been an incredible conversation. David, we can talk about this. The word that keeps coming up is trust. And we're an industry that actually I think now just gets above politicians in terms of trust.
No, sadly not, actually.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe not. So what we all have to do is fix the trust issue. Once you fix the trust issue, people then might listen to you and they might value what it is you're saying. So the question, we're going to discuss this for all of you, is how do we fix the trust issue? And there are many strands to that I think we could talk about. But David,
so just say, Nick and, where is he? Wonderful. Thank you so much for the call, because we care. The reason we're sitting here is we care. And especially when I was in the most joyful role as president of the WFA, I got to see all sorts of data. And the one that shocked me most is for every $100 you put into your digital marketing, you can rest assured that only 27 of it actually arrives where it's supposed to. I checked with Matt whether that still holds, and it's still true. So one quick call out here. I think we've been very polite about the platforms. I don't think we should be so polite about the platforms. And I also had the joy of doing a debate when it was I and Bob Hoffman against two young'uns in Toronto. We lost, I'm sad to say. But it happened to be 2 days after Tim Berners-Lee had written to The Guardian to say, this is not what I intended with the internet. And actually, if you look at where trust is at its lowest, it is actually caused directly by what the platforms do. Now, I know that's a dangerous thing to shout out, because nobody likes to shout it out, but we should. It's also where most of the crap happens. But John, can we celebrate creativity for a minute? Because you built an agency which remains incredible, and I've heard you speak many a time about tech has always represented a challenge for creativity. This is just another one. How do you see it? Well,
it's very important for people to understand that creativity and technology go hand in hand. One forgets, the invention of the piano was an amazing piece of technology that allowed people to compose all kinds of different music. The paintbrush, believe it or not, was a fantastic technological development that allowed you to paint a different kind of picture. So it's always been crucially important to the development of creativity. But it serves creativity. It isn't the master of creativity. And I think it's very interesting. I gave a talk not so long ago, and it it was titled about technology and can you name Gutenberg's second book? And it was a talk about technology, and basically it was saying that, you know, Gutenberg, as we know, 1440, movable press, the printing press, movable type, created a revolution. He created an absolute revolution. There's no question about that. But what book did he print? He printed the Bible. Now, hold on, Gutty. The Bible had been around about 1,000 years. You know, what else are you going to do? He didn't. Now, there are reasons why he didn't. It makes it convenient for my story. But my point about it was that he was a technologist. He wasn't in the sense of an imaginative creative, in the sense I'm going to think about how to use this. So it took about another 50, 60, 70, 80 years before people realized, hold on, wait a minute. We could tell stories. We could do all kinds of things with books. We could create, and it, you know, the Renaissance, basically, they say, came out of the development of the printing press. So you have what I call this creative lag. So a piece of technology comes along, creative people go, what the fuck do I do with this? Got no idea, I've never used it before in my life. And they stand back and technologists take over and, well, you could do this with it and you could check your share price and you got that. And that's what they all said about the internet. Everybody kept on about check your share price. I don't have any shares, you know. And what happens is eventually we began to kind of understand it. And then we begin to understand how to use it. So you get this, what I call this creative lag. And it's happened before. The Lumiere brothers had no idea that when they invented the moving camera, they invented Hollywood. They gave up on it, in fact. They don't know what to do with this, and went back to being very bad photographers. And you know, Les Paul was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, not because he developed or wrote any great music. It was because he created a great guitar. He was a technologist. So we have this lag. You know, he invented his guitar in about 1946, and it was 10 years later that rock and roll happened. They realized you could do something with it. So I think this is where we are. But the problem we have is the technology is coming at us so fast that nobody gets a chance to kind of settle back, now what I'm going to do with it. Now, I do think we are kind of beginning to get on top of it and beginning to go, hold on, what's it doing? We're beginning to understand the downsides. I think that whole thing about media, trust, what do we trust, fundamentally important to your communication program. I think we're beginning to get to that point now. We're starting to go, I understand it a bit more. Now how do I use it? So technology, fundamentally important, crucial to creativity, but creative people have got to engage with it, understand it, and know how to use it. And let's not even talk about AI, you know, which I did say, are you talking about artificial insemination? Or something? You've got so many questions about AI. I just got so bored with it. But, you know, it's just another tool, guys. Use it. It's going to be great. It can't imagine. And that's what the human brain can do, imagine. Then we can imagine something different. So technology, fundamentally important. We've been here before. Can I just say something? I wanted to say something else, and then you will too. Go. Listening to everything here today, you know, you'll find this on your seat, all right? It's called Advertising Principles Explained. It's been written by a man called Orlando Wood through System 1. And he stands back and looks at the advertising industry, the communication industry, and what is going on. But he looks at it also historically. And he says, we've actually been here before. Now, because I am so old, you know, I can remember when I was coming into the advertising industry, it wasn't highly regarded at all. Trust was really low. People questioned why you were doing it. I was at design school saying I wanted to go into advertising. It was just about, you know, Diablo had just walked into the room. It was hated. And, you know, who remembers Vance Packard, Hidden Persuaders? Anybody remember that book? Yeah? Yeah? I mean, it was like, you know, this business subverts you, it's horrible. And we're back there again. So if I can ask you, if there's one thing I would love you all to do, is I'd love you to take up this, go and do his course, 8 things, and he explains everything. And he gives you the tools to argue for a better world, a better world of communication. And I think that's what we want to walk away from here today with, the tools to argue for a better world of advertising.
Fantastic. And I think one thing I'd also now like to touch on, John, is money. In my first job as a client, the Coca-Cola company, I had the joy of appointing 26 of my favourite agencies around the world, and I explained what the financial terms were. And there was only one agency that said, no, we won't do it for that. And that was BBH.
Mad.
And did I appoint you? Yes, I did. So I do think agencies have never been good enough at valuing what they do. And I'm not even touching the value of an idea. I'm just touching standing up for yourself and saying no. So I love that, the presentation that provoked the beginning of the day, because we should value what we do a whole lot more. I also think, this is a money is the root of all evil thing. Back to the platforms. Because of my WFA connection, I can't talk much about what said owner of what was previously known as Twitter has done to GARM. I had the joy of launching GARM in 2019 in Tokyo, which was a direct response to what had happened in Wellington. And it was a call out on social media, need to put safe places for brands to go. And all that GARM was, because it's had to be suspended, was a framework to allow clients to do that efficiently. That's been stopped by the money and the lawyers available. I do quite well at avoiding saying who it is, aren't I? I think somebody already did. So that, that money is the root of all evil thing. Then to go back to the point...
Actually, the quote is the love of money is the root of all evil.
Love of money.
Which actually changes it completely, doesn't it? The love of money is the root of all evil.
Well, it does, and it will neatly segue into the next point, because actually the people point. So, bankers now start on an average salary of 80,000. Pablo, an agency I have the privilege of being the non-exec chairman of, were the first agency to introduce a minimum wage of 30,000. So the entry point is poor, because then if you get to the tech companies, they too are in the 80 and upwards range. So we're not paying people enough up front. I'm not sure that the industry is as meritocratic as it used to be. And Michael, I think you're touching on why that problem exists, because if you look at the cost cut, there's another thing I'll touch on here. This industry has become increasingly ageist, because who has disappeared from the holding companies? It's people with my colour hair. We did say we were never going to be grumpy old men, didn't we?
Actually, I quite like the idea of being a grumpy old man. It's good fun, actually.
And then I just want to emphasise the thing I've always loved about this industry is the people of the industry. And in a way, this is testament to it. Great to see some old friends. But actually, I just came from the launch of Pablo in New York, and I had the joy of meeting the half a dozen people that are going to start. I've never seen people so excited about a challenge and so enthusing about the industry. I wish I'd have filmed the planner, because I said I'm going to go and do this event with Sir John Hegarty, and she said, you just tell people this is the best industry you can be in, and it will be good to you if you're good to it. And that is my experience of it. And then I want to do a thing on a bank in a minute, but over to you, John.
Oh, no, I was just going to join in with that and talk about, what I'd love is for the industry to, again, to be a brand leader. I used to say to clients when they said, John, we're brand leaders, I say that's absolutely fantastic. You're a brand, obviously, but are you leading? And then they always used to look at me in a rather confusing way and say, what do you mean leading? Well, are you leading the market? Are you doing innovative things? Are you, and they get very confused about those things. And one would love to see this industry now be a brand leader in kind of where advertising should run, where it should run in trusted places. We should set up a whole thing of, we had this thing about assessing good and bad. We should do it. When I came into the industry, we were mad about where our ads were going to appear. We used to have shouting matches with the media department. I want a right-hand page and I want it very early. And if I actually don't go, I want a double-page spread very early. And we had a whole point of view about the media. We've lost that. We don't have a point of view anymore about how we should be in trusted places. That's what you need to do. So I'd love us to do that. Now, another point I'd love us to think about, and we touched on this earlier, the industry now is pumping out more and more rubbish. We're like fast fashion. You know, just pump out more stuff. Just pump it out. Didn't work. Oh, pump out more stuff. The planet cannot go on and support this. You literally, the data centers you're going to need to deal with the ability to pump out rubbish, it's impossible for the planet to cope with that. So I would love us to talk about rephrasing the creative industries in our business as a green industry. Because a great idea needs less money behind it than a really poor idea. Because ultimately, we're driving people to a thing called word of mouth. That's what we ultimately all want, word of mouth. I want people talking about me. And if we get to that, we have a sustainable industry, an industry that leads. And we go to our clients and say, are you aware of your carbon footprint? You talk about it in packaging, you talk about it in distribution, you talk about, what about all this stuff that you're pumping out? The planet cannot support it. And let us be the industry that reframes creativity and talks about it as a green industry, an industry, an ability to communicate better, more efficiently, more memorably, because that's what it does. You know, we could talk about, you know, I could say here, you know, Apple 1984. You know, most of the people here would know it. Helped build the company, ran once. What about that for effectiveness? Yeah. And of course, then covering off effectiveness and the creativity and its effectiveness and how it saves money.
Yeah. And to the trust point, so I love listening to the Starling case study, and great job. I mean, and a good team that's done it, and it's nice to see a team work like that too. But Stevie, you were going to ask me a question about RBS. So I had the great joy, and I always recommend this to people I mentor, if you possibly can in your career, take a job that forces you to have gardening leave when you are So I had gardening leave before I started at RBS, which meant I could look at it from the outside and think about it. And when I didn't really read any of the stuff they sent me, but I did ask a little bit about why it was called RBS. Because if you go up to Scotland and ask people who they bank with, they will proudly tell you they bank with the Royal Bank. RBS was an invention of the people that wanted to build the world's biggest bank, and that would be Sir Fred, who should have been put like that, never was. No, that was the missing thing. And actually, the thing on the outside, I thought, is all we've got to do is go back to the customer brands, because I can't really do anything to revive the dead brand that is RBS, so we'll kill that eventually. And my parting gift when I retired was to become the NatWest Group. So we killed RBS, but the Royal Bank continues to thrive as what customers call it, because that's your point, just do what customers want. But Ross asked me when I arrived, what's your strategy then for, you know, how we're going to do this in the corporate affairs? I said, well, apart from we're going to go back to customer-facing brands, but actually, as I've looked at this, it was hubris that got us in this mess, and it's going to be humility that gets us out of it. And I think that exactly applies to this industry. Hubris has got us where we are. We should get out of it with a bit of humility and a bit of focus on what matters, as you so gloriously demonstrated. And John, last word must be yours.
Well, I finish as I started, trust. And very difficult to build, very easy to lose. I think we have lost it. I think we've lost it for a huge number of reasons. But I think we've lost it because we have not taken leadership as a group. And I would love to see us take leadership. But in the end, it's going to be creativity that brings us back. It's going to be creativity which drives this industry. Just as a last thing, when Martin Sorrell was booted, left, resigned, whatever it was, from...
went to pursue other interests.
Yeah, went to pursue other ventures. The FT called me up and said, what do you think his legacy will be? And I said, he won't have a legacy. To which the journalist at the end said, what do you mean? And I said, well, in the communication industry, the people who are remembered are the creative people. If I say David Ogilvy, remember David Ogilvy. If I say Leo Burnett, you remember Leo Burnett. Bill Bernbach, you remember Bill Bernbach. I said to him, those are the people who get remembered. And he said to me, well, but Sorrell was quite an incredible figure. I said to him, if I said to you Marion Harper, what would you say? To which there was a huge silence down the other end of the phone. And I said, he was the man who started IPG. He was the man who started the whole global advertising agency industry. How many people here knew Marion Harper? One at the back. So, it's creativity that will drive us, and creativity that will create success for us, and creativity that will bring us back in places that you can trust.
Brilliant. And I just have to point out how immaculately on time that was, Stevie.
I know you're immaculately on time, but it's a privilege to have both of you sitting here. So I am going to steal a couple of minutes, just in case, and hands are shooting up already. There are people in the room. You can ask them any time, Stephen, so I'm not coming to you. I might come to you later. I'm going to go to the back of the room first, then here, then to Michael.
I'm coming with the mic to you. If you just let us know your name and where you're working.
After you, sir. Thank you. Hi, Simon Redican. I'm a media guy. I guess
my. You don't need to apologise, Simon.
That was a pride in my voice.
No, I thought you said it with confidence.
My question is it possible to uncouple the advertising industry from the technology platforms? Because that sort of was what I was hearing from you both.
No, I didn't. First of all, I don't think it is, and I didn't mean it like that. I do think they need to be held to an account in a way that isn't happening at the moment. I don't know why. I don't know why everybody is so frightened of calling out what Meta do and what YouTube do. And one data point I haven't heard today is, I think, John, you were reminding me, next year advertising forecast is $3 trillion, and ad blocking, brought to you by the tech people, will also approach $1 billion for the first time. Oh no, more than $1 billion. It also approach $1 trillion. But I think you can do it more honourably by calling out the platforms. Yeah,
and particularly the infrastructure that you talked about in the quote blogosphere.
Yeah,
I think 27% was quite generous, actually.
Yeah,
comes down below that.
So in the previous presentation, name's David Murphy. In the previous presentation, Ruben said that news is brand safe and effective. But do you understand, the question for both of you, why brands would rather be alongside good news than bad news? If it's a choice, if you're EasyJet and you could be alongside Who's Just Won Strictly, as opposed to, any of the terrible incidents that are reported every day in the newspapers?
No, I think brands want to be alongside trusted news, valued news. I mean, news is good and bad. I think all they want is to be in a place that they know they can be trusted and it can be trusted. And I don't want to find myself alongside some terrible porn site or whatever it might be, whatever, So I don't think it's about we only want good news out there. I think advertising wants news that's respected. And therefore, if you're respected, then you're in good company. That's what I think it's all about. That's what I took from Ruben's presentation, which I thought was outstanding.
Yeah.
Michael wanted to
We had a question there and then to Michael at the front.
Thank you, Stevie. My name's Martin Lotes. Used to run a PR company, but now I'm a sort of a free agent. Picking up on John's point about reframing the industry as part of the green and sustainable agenda. I mean, it's all very laudable. I love it to be thus. But surely if we do good advertising that's effective, we're going to be flogging people more stuff, and not all of it will be good for the planet. I picked up 3 Gillette disposable razors on the way over here because that's all I could get in Boots. I really only wanted one because I wanted to shave before coming here because I've been on holiday. So I bought 2 more razors than I really needed because I think Gillette's a great brand. So I'm not sure whether what you say is really possible and realistic.
Well, I disagree entirely, as you would expect. My job in advertising is to do the best I can. That's what I've got to do, to create a respected industry that works positively to create great messages. I don't control what my clients make. That's now their job to create brands that are respected and products that are respected. That's what you do in life. That's how you start, put your own house in order first. Then you can start talking to other people. So I disagree entirely with what you say.
Yeah.
That's one for drinks and supper, Martin. I'm going to join you. Michael.
Thank you. Michael Farmer. Sir John,
Michael.
love the idea of advertising becoming a green industry. Wouldn't it be required to privatize the entire industry to keep it from being driven by the need to grow? Because all of that rubbish that is being produced generates income, unfortunately, for someone, a media owner, creative agencies, not sales for big brands. But isn't the public ownership driving the downgrading and the high volume of crap that's out there right now?
I think you're absolutely right. I think, I used to say to all people, the last reason you do anything is money in the creative world. Now, I think, we were given a presentation showing how difficult it is for young people today. But I think our industry is essentially a creative industry. It's about imagination, and it's got to be able to say no as well as say yes. Overall, I think the agencies going public has been bad for the industry. We were with Publicis, so I'm critical of myself in a way, you could say. But I don't think it's conducive, ultimately, to great creative work, because it pushes you to constantly compromise, and you have to stand on your own feet. That's why, actually, if you look at the industry, it was the upstarts that made all the changes. The Burnett's, the Bill Bernbachs, the David Ogilvies, all of those people, Dan Wyden, who made the changes. They were the ones who did it, and they did it from believing in themselves and having principles that they stood by.
I'm going to come back to, is growth the right criteria for society generally, not just for advertising, but we'll put that to one side. We've got two questions over there. I did promise Stephen that I would let him come in.
Thanks very much. And I know we're winding up towards the end. And I thought I'd leave you with two bits of good news from the work we're doing. So in terms of the sustainability challenges, there's something called Ad Net Zero that's now in 12 markets around the world. Leading companies over.
It doesn't mention creativity once, Stephen.
It does.
It doesn't.
Action 5. It's all about the messaging.
We'll have a punch up.
Anyway, so that is in the plan. And the second thing is, in the UK, trust in advertising is on the rise. It's been going up for the last 2 years. It's higher now than it was for a while, the bottom, for many years, but it's now higher than the government. We can't claim any credit for that. They've done a pretty good job in their own right, but it's also higher.
You mean better than Boris Johnson?
Well, yes.
Oh my God. Oh, that's a fan. You should be rock on.
The interesting thing is that the trend is quite pronounced, is quite up, strongly up, and it's now higher than the media. So there's some good signs there.
Excellent.
Thanks, Stephen. We had two questions. Actually, I'm going to go, thank you very much, to the female at the back. So we get a female voice, and then I'm going to take all three questions together, if I may, which is going to be a real challenge.
Thank you so much. This is for Sir John. I would love to share a thought with you, because you said that creativity will bring us back. And you're right, but which kind of creativity? Because I think that the real next creative revolution will start when we stop monopolize the creativity and limited it in jingles, colors, messages, and open it to financial future, to new professions, to adapt the new technologies, and make a holistic profession of the advertisement.
I love that. I'm going to hold that thought because we're coming back to democratization of creativity outside. I'm going to ask these two questions. They might be completely unrelated.
No, it's just it's Jeff at Sky. It was just two things. One, perhaps a slogan you could have is "Make advertising great again." There might be an awful lot of hats around that you could use. The other one was that on your trust thing, I completely get you. It would be, in the early days when I was, selling TV advertising at Granada, I could explain to the buyer precisely how a rating was created. And could say almost to the point, even though we didn't know who the panelists were, right? You could say someone pressed the button and this happened, and we multiplied it by this and this happened. Okay, and also here's proof of the fact the ad went out. So I'm going to give you a log every single day. It's quite interesting that we tell our as we move into online. We've been telling a lot of our business analysts said, go find yourself. Okay, because now you can actually find yourself in the data. If you go and watch Sky TV and you put a bit of VOD content on and you get an ad, the record will be personal to you and you can find it. And I would challenge anybody that is either buying advertising online through the big platforms, go find yourself. Because actually, a report is made and you can't. That record is apparently won, and you can't find yourself. So if you can't find yourself, I would think that data shouldn't be trusted.
Yep.
I think put out versus pull in and proxies, maybe we'll come back to that. Last word before we go back to Sir John.
Good luck answering all these three in one cohesive narrative. Sure. But, so it's Robin Bond from Codefinery. This is a question primarily for you, David.
Good.
You're welcome. So the thing you said earlier about BBH being the one agency that stood its ground when you sort of put a number in front of them, I'm really curious about that, because I know from my work that very few agencies are actually able to defend themselves in that way, and even fewer, even the best agencies are able to command a premium. So there's something awry there. So I'm curious, if clients are continuing to squeeze agencies, primarily because agencies let them, clients are able to win each of the battles, but they're going to be just as much of a loser in the long-term war as the agency. So what advice can you give to clients to see that continuing to squeeze agencies isn't in their own long-term interests?
Well, I mean,
Do the joy of no, and then we'll end on democratisation of creativity.
Let's start with, I was able to do these negotiations myself because we didn't have the procurement function in the way that everybody now has. And also because I'd come from running an agency, I knew what everybody's margins were, more or less. It was just that. So I would say, and I would always start by going, listen, we're about to appoint you on this project. Don't let the dollars sign whirl around because it's the Coca-Cola company, because here's how it's going to work. And you could see people going, oh, it's the Coca-Cola company. And when it was Nigel, actually, and I said, the margin's going to be this. He said, no, it isn't. We're not doing it then. Literally. And I think that it's doable. Now, as a client, so I always made a point of making it clear to the procurement folk the value that I and we, as the brands I were working for, placed on advertising and on having proper partners who should make proper money in a fair way. And I think we have to educate procurement folk. And there are, to be fair, there's some fantastic marketing literate procurement people. So you can't blame them. Sorrel always used to blame procurement for this. Money was made in lazy and untransparent ways, let's be clear. We haven't talked about that enough today. And now everybody has to fess up and go, here's how we make money, here's our margins. We don't make anything from production, we don't make anything from media, we just make it like this, and that's what you'll pay. And if you don't want to pay it, goodbye. I think agencies have to be able to do that, and I think good ones can.
And why we have to pay good people, and therefore
exactly
costs go up. David, thank you. John, 1 minute on
democratization of creativity, was it?
Yes.
I think in many ways it's wonderful, except a wonderful quote that I've always used and I love, and it says, we're all artists, but some of us shouldn't exhibit. And I think the problem with democratization is it thinks everybody should, and really you shouldn't, The danger of it is it stops us considering craft. It stops us considering understanding how to do things and put things together. Democratization is wonderful. The fact that everybody has the opportunity, but in the end, you've got to earn the opportunity. What was the second question?
No, that's
that
it.
was it. Lovely.
That's it. Thank you very much indeed to both John and David. I want to, for me, say thank you to all of our speakers, all of whom have been brilliant, to all the workstream members, and indeed actually to all the unpaid volunteers who made today possible because they cared and made it possible to give a big donation to NABS, which is amazing. I particularly want to thank the power behind many of the most successful industry convening events. Caroline, well done, Caroline Marshall. But especially, I want to ask Nick and Brian to come up on the stage because they're the ones who started this Who Cares movement, and I'd like them both to say a few words before we go downstairs for drinks and supper and carrying on the conversation. So let's give a big round of applause to Nick and Brian.
Right, you've been extremely patient. We've learned a few things today. Don't wear clothes in a sauna. Know your limits when it comes to bladder control, things like that. But when Brian and I sat down in a coffee shop in Putney in May, or whenever the hell it was, we said to each other, look, you know, we've been talking about this stuff in our columns and our blogs and everything else, podcasts or whatever, for years, and sometimes it feels like we're howling into a bit of a gale. We know there's people out there who feel the same way that we do because we talk to them. But let's test it. Let's see who cares. So we thought, well, the thing to do is just find out. So we said, okay, Brian will do one of his blog posts and we'll see what happens. And it was amazing. I mean, literally within minutes, people were coming back and saying, yes, I care, from all parts of the world, from Asia Pacific and the US and everywhere else. And so what we've learned is there's a lot of people out there in the world who really do care about the things that we care about. And we've also learned that this is just the start of the process. This is a launch event. We're not stopping today. This isn't a conference per se. It's a working meeting where we wanted to start here and see how you react, because we value your feedback as much as anything else. So we will be asking you for your feedback, honest, direct, whatever you want to do. We will be canvassing your feedback because we want to know what matters to you, because that will help us decide what we're going to do going forward. And the most frequently asked question was, what happens after all of this? And we said, we don't know. We can't know until we get there. And I'm not going to try and summarize all of this and what we're going to do next now, because we can't. Apart from anything else, we all need a drink and some food. But we are going to be picking up the thoughts, ideas, suggestions, and recommendations that people have come back with. We'll decide what they are. We'll let you know. Caroline and Brian and I will be convening on the 9th of October to do that, based on your feedback. So you will be hearing more from us in the future, hopefully soon, but we'll decide how we can help you care more about advertising and improve the advertising that we are sending out to the public and the advertising industry. So, Brian, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, hi. I would just like to say to everybody, I mean, not only have we had, I looked at it this morning, about 370 people now have joined our supporter group from all over the place, which, I mean, when we were sitting in Artisan Coffee Shop in Putney, we thought maybe 3 or 4 might, not 300 or 400. But what's also absolutely extraordinary is that we've managed to do this with the help of an awful lot of people. I mean, we've had right from the start, we've had a New Zealand-based web company called Blue Tui, who've not only built us a website, but have hosted it, and have also, by the way, put up with me wanting changes every 5 minutes. We've had help from the 7 Stars, who've designed us a logo, which you see here, and have been a source of absolutely brilliant inspiration to us sort of throughout. We've had all sorts of people who've done things. We've had Thinkbox, who put together the sizzle reel at the start of this. We've had the Digital Voice, Julia Linehan's company, who've been organising all of the registration today and all the on-the-ground support. We've had Hegarty, who've given us these, paid for and have given us these things here. Everybody has done all of this, it should be said, for absolutely nothing. I mean, we've paid them nothing. We've asked them if they would mind helping us, and everybody has said that they would, which is extraordinary, and it does show, to Nick's point, how much people do care. there's one other last point I'd make is that we asked all these people who are all, very busy to come along and, to work in work streams for the last however many months it is. We've asked all these speakers, courtesy of largely through Caroline, and I think I'm right in saying not one person has turned us down. Not one. So it does show that everybody does care about this, or everybody does. There's a very substantial number of people who care about this, and we will keep it going. We don't know what's going to happen next point, but we know that we've started something, and we hope to continue with it. And thank you very much indeed to everybody who's come and given up, as Stevie said at the start, what was about probably the last nice day of the autumn to come and sit in the RSA. And to Stevie, who did a fantastic job. I mean, I thought to myself, we're going to be here at 7 o'clock at night, the way things were going. And Stevie does not have a fantastic reputation for doing this kind of thing for nothing. She got the whole thing in on time, which is remarkable. And I really hope that we can see you downstairs for some food and some drink. And thank you very much to everybody who's come along.